One of the many things that Americans take for granted is their right to vote. The 2008 U.S. Census Bureau reported that 48% of registered voters did not actually vote. About 34% of non-voters said that they were too busy to vote. This could be due to the fact that the current economy is tougher than it used to be, and work must be their priority. Other reasons, such as lack of confidence in the government and in the impact of their vote, seem to be universal for all non-voters. Understanding the importance of voting happens more easily when severe problems arise and need to be fixed rather than maintaining the prosperity of the country. Here are some highlights in the history of our voting rights, a right that did not always exist for all citizens. In 1846, Union soldiers were allowed to cast absentee ballots, which meant the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18, thus including other soldiers who were allowed to fight for the country but had previously not been allowed to vote. The United States government also removed property ownership requirements in order to obtain more voters. The 15th Amendment was ratified in 1870 following the Civil War and allowed African Americans to finally vote. This amendment stated that the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. It was not until 1913 women in such states as Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, and Colorado were allowed to vote in order to meet the state's voting requirements. However, the 19th Amendment, which allowed women in all of America to vote, was not ratified until 1920. In 1965, 25,000 people marched from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, in protest against racist barriers that prevented Black Americans from voting. These barriers included literacy tests, generational nativity requirements, and certain elections that excluded minorities. On June 30, 1971, the United States lowered the voting age to 18 for federal elections by ratifying the 26th Amendment. This allowed 11 million more citizens to vote, and in 1972, 58% of young voters under 30 took advantage of their rights to vote. In 2008, Americans were looking for a change and motivated each other to vote because of the lack of support for the Bush administration. The presidential campaigns, namely Barack Obama's, managed to attract the younger demographics of voters through popular media such as the use of television, internet, and celebrity endorsements in music. America saw an increase in votes from young people as well as African Americans. The Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement stated that about 23 million young Americans under 30 voted in 2008, which is 3.4 million more than 2004. 70% of these young voters had attended college, while only 57% of U.S. citizens have attended. This could simply mean that colleges were the main access for young voters. In addition, half of young voters claimed they would be excited if Obama won, likely because of the novel idea of having a non-Caucasian male president. This diagram shows that 52% of young citizens voted in 2008, which has not yet been as much since 1992. According to the New York Times, July 21, 2009, the percentage of African Americans who voted in 2008 exceeded the percentages of all other ethnicities for the first time. Of the ages of 18 to 24, 55.4% of Black Americans voted as opposed to 49.4% of white Americans. As for citizens between 25 and 44, 64% of Black Americans voted compared to 62% of white Americans. The chart also shows a significant increase for all other minorities. Aside from presidential elections, many elections occur throughout the year and presidential term. Instead of waiting for times of dire need, America needs to continually voice concerns and exercise rights for making decisions. Voting is the least that can be done to maintain a strong nation. It may seem like one vote wouldn't matter, but as President Obama had marketed in his campaign, nothing can stand in the way of the power of millions of voices calling for change.